Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the P-LotPodcast. John here, joined once again by the main man, Michelangelo. Michael, the NFL, the 2025 NFL season has been over for a little less than 24 hours, man. And wow, did you think at any point at all this year, up until like the playoffs, that the Seattle Seahawks were going to be Super Bowl champions?
I have to say, I didn't fully buy in until the playoffs, I guess. The Eagles comp of last year was came across my like feeds and the similarities. I definitely saw the vision, and that's kind of what happened, man. Like the Super Bowl last night was like could have convinced me it was like any number of 2024 Eagles regular season games. You know what I mean? Suffocating great defense, great run game, and you just dominate pretty much through and through, start to finish. But if I had to actually comp this Super Bowl, it was last year's Super Bowl with less hype moments, is basically what it was. It was Super Bowl 59 with, it had the defensive touchdown, I guess, but it was late enough in the game that it didn't feel as consequential. No, like genuinely zero big plays on offense for Seattle. The only really big splash play got called back from a hold. A lot of field goals where the Eagles scored a lot more touchdowns. So like it was just it was the same font of a complete team with a great defense dominating a team that is definitely on paper a lot worse, but in theory, I guess, had the quarterback advantage and the quarterback was MVP caliber. And both MVP caliber quarterbacks got absolutely embarrassed and played a pretty putrid game with little help surrounding them as well. And you get a couple of blowouts in the last two Super Bowls. So yeah, that's my overarching, I guess, takeaway on what Super Bowl 60 was all about.
Yeah. Well, let's oh boy. Sorry, when you were talking I pulled up this is actually a headline on my Twitter feed about that former Flyers coach Petey.
I don't want to talk about the Flyers or hockey at all, so we're just going to
I
skip
wish I
right
did I
past
wish I
that.
did I wish I just didn't look at that. That just upset me greatly.
Yeah.
Um all right, so I would say like so we did the show last on Saturday. Sunday rolls around. So like I don't know about you, man. Like I really didn't have a dog in this fight. Really at all, and we kind of going into yesterday. Like I don't know, man. I haven't really been least hyped for a Super Bowl like this in a while. Like on one hand, I was trying to really get myself excited, and like your dad. Do you remember your dad would probably say stuff like, "Oh, I remember when I was like your age, like Super Bowls were all blowouts and they weren't really like close
Sure,
games. You
sure.
really like when you watch a competitive Super Bowl, like really like enjoy it or just
Mhm.
remember this." Yeah, I'll have to say this, like kind of going into this game, like I kind of was like leaning towards this. Like I picked the Patriots, then I was like thinking about it more, and I'm like, the Patriots just don't really lack. They don't really have a lot of offensive firepower, you know. And oh man, I don't know. Like I was kind of feeling meh. Like where'd you go to watch the Super Bowl last night, Michael?
I was home. I stayed home, had a nice time at home with the family. Made some good food throughout the course of the day. That was a good time. But like entering this game, I think the lack of hype really kind of fell onto the fact that New England had just looked so poor throughout the course of the playoffs. Like totally different team from what they look like in the regular season of the playoffs. Because if we have to be totally honest, like the obviously the New England offense in the regular season was great. It was really, really good, top 2 in, like, EPA and DVOA, all that good stuff. Drake May finishes 2nd in MVP voting. We'll talk about the awards a little bit later. And the defense was, like, it was fine. It was good in some games, it wasn't so good in some other games. It was largely inconsistent. It was obviously a lot better when Milton Williams was healthy and playing. And then the playoffs roll around and the offense becomes, like, anemic and the defense becomes incredible, and it was truly like grinding through what the 2000s, early 2000s Patriots were, when they first got there and first broke through. It was really like seemingly going down what felt like a similar path, not asking the quarterback not needing to do too much. You think about the Charger game where Drake May's not playing well pretty much at all, but he delivers like some really nice throws for big plays and touchdowns. It's like, okay, it's in there. You just kind of got to grind it all out and it'll show up. And then the playoffs continued to go and it was like, man, Drake May put the ball on the ground like 8 times against Houston, total disaster. Even before the snow against Denver, he was just terrible, inaccurate, and it just came up again in the Super Bowl, and it was like the reason why I was very heavily, like, believing in the Seahawks as soon as those games ended. I was like, "No way the Patriots gonna win." And the 2 weeks off, you really start thinking about it, and you gotta see I got too cute, um, thought too hard about it. Like, the fact of the matter was just Seattle was the better team, top to bottom, really, except the quarterback, and the way the quarterbacks were playing, they had the quarterback advantage in that situation just because how bad Drake May was playing. Um, and it was dominant, and it made a lot of sense that it went the way it went, where Seattle won the game in a way that they were comfortable winning in. They How many games did they win this year where Jason Myers kicked 4 or 5 field goals, and that was, like, by design, it wasn't giving Darnold the opportunity to make a terrible backbreaking mistake in the red zone and just taking your points and trusting your defense, you know? Um, and they did it again on the biggest stage, and it didn't matter. I mean, it was just a very, very good win for them, and I wanna, I guess the biggest difference I saw in this game where the similarities were there because New England's pass rush, especially interior, especially Milton Williams, was pretty strong throughout the course of the game. Milton Williams was dominating Seattle up front pretty consistently. And obviously, we know Seattle's defensive line was dominating the Patriots' offensive line. But what were your 2 biggest differences? Sam Darnold was very slippery in the pocket. I think only took 1 sack and avoided Milton Williams alone, like 3 times when he came in as like essentially winning instantly. Um, but Sam Darnold avoided the sacks, avoided the big negative plays in that way, and Drake May just couldn't. He kinda was almost turtling up a little bit. It was almost like early in the game, he was so conscious of trying not to fumble that it took away from his playmaking ability because the pressure got in and was like, I just got to take the sack. I don't want to try to do too much. And then the game went on and he had to start doing too much. And that's when he started fumbling. And that's when, through the interception. So it just felt like the pressure all came crashing down on New England's coaching staff and their quarterback, where Seattle seemed to thrive in the pressure for the most part.
Yeah, well, you know, I have a lot of takes about both teams that I wanted to bring up.
Go
I
for it.
So I guess I'll just start. I'll start with the losing team. I guess I'll start with the New England Patriots. Michael, I was my friend of the show Zach showed me a lot of like tweets and videos of Mike Vrabel on like Busting with the Boys, and like he was, they all do like Radio Row and all like the podcasts are there, and like Mike Vrabel's a really good interview. And, I had this thought in my head where I'm like, dude, the Patriots get blown out. Like their fans are going to do like a 180 on Vrabel because of the fact
Ah,
that the hoodie never would do stuff like that. He's going to always get compared to him. And then, and
okay.
then you kind of hear him like, he's joking around with like Taylor Lewan and Will Compton. He's like, oh, when I was in Tennessee, we couldn't get it done. And, the reason why we're here, because I just have better players than I did in Tennessee. And then I was thinking about it. I'm like, yeah, that's kind of, I was like trying to bust their balls, give them a hard
I
time.
mean, I'm sure he was.
And
Lawan's
he's
a hell of a
right. And
player.
he's right. But I was just kind of like, I'm thinking to myself, like, dude, like, you're the underdog in the Super Bowl. Like, shouldn't you, like, I don't know, be working with all you have a limited amount of time to like cook up something and to see how like, and listen, we know Vrabel's not like an offensive coach, like, and he's not really a defensive coach. He's almost like he's a CEO coach,
Hmm.
and you kind of wonder, like. Like, like he was so passive in the Super Bowl. It's like he was so quick to go out, and he wasn't arrogant, but he was like, the joke of like, oh, he cut off his what to win a Super Bowl as
Yeah,
a
right. I don't. Right, right.
right, and it's all this bravado and like not going for two when he needed to go for two, not going for it on 4th and 1. Like, dude, you're in the Super Bowl and you're the underdog. Like, you need to be aggressive. And I think like my other take I have is like, listen, I'm sure like there's people way more knowledgeable about football than me who've been worked in football who disagree with me. I think Josh McDaniels is just very overrated. I think Josh McDaniels, like anybody, just greatly benefited from having Tom Brady play quarterback because he ran the exact same offense that they would run with Brady. And like Michael, every NFL coach has seen that offense at some variance. And they're like, we bring up like nowadays how football is changing. Like, you need to be creative on offense to have success. If you're going to run that Brady offense, like, just need to have way better players than the other team for it to work. In other words, like, you look at Seattle, right? Is AJ Barner special? Is like old Cooper Cup special? Like Rashid Shaheed, he's a solid player. Is he really like special?
I wouldn't call those guys special now.
You know, like how come they were able to achieve so many yards this year? It's because of their scheme, creativity on offense, like taking advantage of matchups. Like I remember watching a Patriots Jets Thursday night game with friend of the show, Mac. That's who I watched the Super Bowl with. I turned to him at one point. I'm like, "Do you remember when we were watching the Patriot Jet Thursday night game?" And I said, like, I don't feel like I'm watching an offense. I feel like I'm watching like a combine drill where Drake Mason's throwing out routes nonstop. And I was telling him, I'm like, you don't think a team like Seattle's going to watch that and be like, okay, cover two, get after May. He can't check down in the flats. He can't throw the out. Let's make him think and hold on to the ball longer than he needs to be. And what happened, Michael? What
Yeah.
happened in that game?
Hmm. Absolutely.
He was getting crushed. He had no time to think. So if you're the Patriots, you didn't think that, oh wow, Will Campbell's been playing really bad lately. You know, maybe what do we need to do to help him out? Or what do we need to do to help Drake May out? We know they're going to pressure us.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I think a lot what you said was correct there for sure. Pretty much on the nose on stuff. That Will Campbell pick, I think is really going to come back to haunt him, whether
I don't
Membu
see.
or
I don't think
Kelvin
I'm
Banks.
not ready to bail on to
I'm
bury
not ready
Will.
to bail on him, but I think he needs to play guard. Like he's just too small to play tackle. We saw it. Like we fresh in our eyes, he was getting beat pretty much all year consistently. He's too small. He's thin. Like he's a thinner frame. He's got like no shoulders, no broadness to his shoulders. He can't go out and make a punch. We make fun of his arms or whatever for being short. The fact is that his arms, while short, it's more of like the wingspan, and the wingspan comes from here, not, just the arm, and he's got nothing. I think he'd be much better at guard, but
Yeah, I think
regardless,
I would agree. I think Membu and Kelvin Banks would have been probably they're better players. I know
That's
Membu.
just
I know
flat out, just flat
I know
out better
Membu
players.
plays right tackle, but dude, I remember watching like Jet games, and I'm like, their offensive line's actually not that bad. I'm like, their right tackle, their first round pick Membu, like like Lane Johnson Jr.
Yeah,
basically.
Membu and like Fashanu, nice. But regardless, New England, I just didn't love. You're right with like some of the preparation stuff. I just didn't love what their game plan was entering the game. I do think it was stale. I honestly, to be completely honest with you, John, it felt like some of the passing concepts. It felt very Eagles-ish. Felt very like just kind of
When
downfield
they
stuff.
almost threw that pick, I think to either Job on like that hitch route
Right.
to
There were a lot of hitches and there were a lot
Rudy.
of goes, and it's like you knew the pressure was gonna be a problem, full stop. They didn't build in enough hots right away. Like, the hots didn't come till later in the game as a big part of their adjustment, which was, like, pressure coming one side, and we got a swing pass coming out on the other side away from it, and it's open, and Ramondre Stevenson had a nice day receiving because of it, and it's like, those needed to be implemented to stay on schedule and stay ahead of task early on in the game, but you really it just felt like the passing concepts weren't anything easy to do. It wasn't like how many times were they showing, Drake May getting under duress and getting sacked, and then you kinda see the background, you're like, "No one's open." Like, there really isn't a great spot to get with the ball, and if May's gonna be coiling up and not wanting to try to run and use his legs, this is over basically. It's pretty much done, before it even starts, and I thought that May needed to be a little bit more aggressive with his legs. I thought that the play calling could have been more aggressive with his legs. I didn't mind the running game. It wasn't like totally all bad, but I felt like you just needed to lean into the skill set of your quarterback a little bit and maybe call some more zone reads, call some more read options or, quarterback design runs to try to get just some momentum flowing. Like I it just felt like both defenses came out with their ears pinned back and, like, full aggression from the get-go, and New England's offense was just extremely, extremely passive from the standpoint of it not that, like, a deep ball is passive or anything, but it's like they had vertical routes and things going down the field, but nothing actually intricate, and the lack of intricacies within the route concepts and the scheme, you couldn't scheme anyone open. So you're not scheming anyone open. Your options are just kind of throwing deep balls where they got the too high shell where it's really not comfortable to take a shot because you're not getting any true one-on-ones. And Drake May is playing like kind of scared. And it was just a recipe for
That's another
disaster.
point I wanted to make. I thought Drake May. I think the moment was just way too bright for him. And look, it's his second year quarterback on a team with like a first year head coach, like
You're
with
the
that.
second year quarterback, and the entire offense is kinda predicated on you carrying them. Like, it was ve you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't
Yeah, dude, you're right, man.
field
This is like
super,
this feels like yeah, you're dude. You just I don't know if you just said Vic, but like
No, I didn't say Vic, but
Vic, but no, like dude, that dude, it kind of like
it was like the Chiefs. What was the Chiefs' offense last year?
carried on
Predicated on just
Patrick Mahomes
Mahomes, carried on Mahomes, truly, and obviously, that's a little more successful because it's Patrick
because
Mahomes.
Mahomes is a better
But
quarterback than
even
Drake
then,
May.
Andy Reid is creative enough and good enough with scheme design to still get open looks to guys, but even then, you saw Mahomes wasn't missing open players in the Super Bowl last year because a great defense can smother you and swarm you, especially with a terrible offensive line. That needs to be New England's top priority, is upgrading the offensive line in its totality. If that means moving Will Campbell inside and then drafting another offensive lineman, then that's what it means. Like, it just you need to invest into that heavily. You invested in, a lot in the defense and the defensive trenches and stuff, but it's time to make that next pivot for them. Um, I just it was just a bad game from Drake May, no doubt about it. And even when it started to feel like he was maybe seeing it through, he had the nice scramble. He made two back-to-back really nice throws. The one I'm thinking he layered in between like five Seattle D-backs was really nice. And it was like, okay, even Collinsworth was like, all right, now he's starting to see the field a little bit. And you felt that. You really, really did. And, and the immediate next play, they run the concept's called Yankee with like a little with the deep post and then the crosser coming down underneath it. And it's a good passing concept. The Eagles run that a lot. A lot of teams run that a lot. It's a very classic shot play concept. But the problem is when you can get home with 4 and exclusively 4, you are just almost impossible to beat defensively if you're getting consistent pressure with the front 4. And that's what Seattle was getting. So they were able to drop a bunch into coverage. And New England, what's even more unfortunate is that when you're giving up pressure when they're only rushing 4 a ton, you need to block extra guys. So now instead of just trusting your offensive line to hold up 5 on 4, you got to bring in and chip, and now you're at like 6 or 7 on 4, and you got no one really out in route concept. So you got 2 routes going basically against 4 Seattle defenders. No matter what receiver he wanted to throw to, they were going to be double covered, and it's so hard to even tell where he was trying to go because where the ball ends up getting intercepted is like the literal middle point between the post route and the crossing route. It's almost like he would wanted to throw the cross and then last minute was like, "Oh, I can take the deep shot," but then didn't put enough on it. You don't know because literally if the ball, you look at the dots and stuff, lands right in between where the post route was going and right where the crossing route was. So really think he got caught in between, who knows? But he still would have thrown a ball in double coverage either way, and he got intercepted, and that was ultimately the dagger. Like, you made a couple nice plays in a row, and he couldn't even ride the positive momentum. I think just it was, Kurt
I
Benkert, we feel how we feel about him, but he even tweeted it, and it's what it felt like. It felt like this watching it, felt like he was seeing ghosts, like, truly was just pressured consistently early, and it got him totally rattled, and he's been getting pressured all postseason, broke a record for the most times sacked in the playoff run, and it was truly just ridiculously dominant. Like, he was back there taking a lot of hits, and it affected his play. It affected his play. He missed a lot of throws, just some flat out open guys that he's not seeing, and then just not hitting, making accurate throws. Um, which capped off like an all-time bad playoff run. It really, really was a stinker. It's one of those stinkers so bad that it's going to take a lot career-wise to rewrite that narrative away from like a playoff choker because that is some serious stench that Drake May's got to wear for some time now.
you know, I do feel to a certain extent that like Drake May also injured his shoulder as well entering the game, and people were like, I think people rush to bury guys when they have rough postseason games.
Sure.
If Drake May's just not healthy, like I mean, I don't know, man. If you're again going back to like New England, why wouldn't you try to come up with more run concepts, ways to get Travion Henderson maybe more involved in the ground game, maybe like run more 12, 13 personnel, like I mean, I don't know, man. It was
And
like
they tried with Travion Henderson, I feel. He's just not ready yet, but like they had such little explosive plays that the game plan turned to like, you know what? Let's just pitch it to Travion Henderson. He's fast, and hopefully he just outrun anybody and get us an explosive play because we like Ramondre Stevenson. Nice running back, especially when he's not fumbling. But he's not generating a ton of explosive runs for you. And clearly the passing game
he's
wasn't
Kareem
generating.
Hunt.
Yeah, and obviously the passing game wasn't generating anything explosive. But I don't know. I think they could have came out and ran some more screens early to like get the pass rush to stay honest a bit.
I
But
would
all
say
that came too
screens
late in
are
the
like
game.
I don't know, like you kind of from watching a lot of these Super Bowls, like Brady was like the check down master, and I saw Drake May, especially midway through the game, pass up a lot of check downs, trying to force it downfield, almost got intercepted or overthrew the receiver. That to me, where I was thinking like he's just rattled, like
Hmm.
and that's where you kind of think with coaching, like you just tell like like Drake, just if they give you like, listen, they're gonna come after you. If you got the check down, Just keep getting check downs. If it's like 3rd and 3, we get a check down, we're gonna get 4 yards. You know, I didn't get that. I
Mhm.
just didn't get that vibe. It felt like Drake May. He had a couple passes where there were tight windows, and he was throwing it as hard as he possibly could, and guys were dropping him because the ball I think was just thrown too hard.
Yeah, it just a really not good performance. And yeah, and we got to give credit. Seattle's defense was ferocious. I mean, the one defensive tackle, the rookie that got a sack early in the game, he played less than 30 snaps this season. Like it was everyone was getting theirs. It truly did remind me of the Eagles last year where you're just relentlessly getting home with four. You don't need to blitz and the pressure's coming. And then when you do send the blitz, they're just not even remotely ready for it. Witherspoon came on a handful of blitzes and it worked. Mike McDonald is a really, really great coach and is a really, really bright defensive mind. And it shows, man. It really, really does show. They have teams rattled from the get-go. The only team like, the big key that is able to succeed against this Seattle defense is having just flat out one of the few best receivers in football. Like, the Rams obviously scored pretty well against Seattle all year, and a big part of that is the fact that Puka Nacua is arguably the best receiver in the NFL. Like, they don't have like a big physical corner that can truly stick one on one. And when you have a great receiver, especially after the catch and stuff, it can cause some problems for them. But you go look at the scores all year, they didn't give up points to like anybody besides the Rams and Tampa early in the season when Tampa's, was on their crazy good passing game streak and Emeka Ibuka was playing out of his mind. Like that was the big key there where Ibuka was playing like one of the best receivers in the league the first like what month and a half of the season. So obviously the 49ers don't have a true great receiver, and New England definitely doesn't have a true great receiver. And you saw dominant performances from the defense, and the sweat only coming against the Rams with Puka Nacua and Devontae Adams. So that's the big key. Obviously, Mike McDonald deserves so much credit, and he's getting it. But I want to pivot to the offensive side of the ball for the Seahawks. Sam Darnold, how do you think Sam Darnold played?
Av-
Mid?
only 50% of his throws, had a couple throws that probably should have been intercepted. Missed a couple wide open throws that could have been huge splash plays. Michael, like,
Yeah, I totally agree with 100% of what you just said.
Mike,
He played
I don't
mid.
know. I showed, I think he's better than this guy by a lot, but it was Trent Dilfer in Super Bowl 34. You pull up Trent Dilfer's stat line, you're like, wow, this looks like trash.
I mean, Dilfer
How
was
did they, how
definitely
did,
worse.
right? It's like, how
Like
exactly?
if New England won, that would have been Dilfer, Drake May's stats. I mean,
Yeah,
he Drake May truly had like a bottom five playoff run ever. It's worse than 2015 Peyton Manning, which is
yeah.
alarming.
Well, my point was like Drake. All Sam Darnold just didn't need to do was turn it over, and the Seahawks were going to win.
Yeah, no,
Just
absolutely.
despite how like off he was, and he was probably seeing some ghosts himself. He evaded some sacks. He helped keep plays alive. But like realistically, if I don't know, like maybe if that was Bo Nix in Denver, do we see, and we're gonna dig into the hypotheticals, you know, it could have been like 17-14 Seahawks. It would have probably been more like a defensive, like, slugfest, I suppose. You know, I don't like slandering New England from the perspective of, New England could only beat who's in front of them, right? They didn't choose to, it's not like the Broncos played Stiddy because Bo Nix got benched. It was because Jared Stidham had to come in and play. But man, like all the slander and all the things people were saying nasty about New England, it's kind of true, you know. That's your way of saying, like, you look at, like, I look at the 2017 Eagles and all the crap people talked about them, and they shoved it down everyone's throats. New
Right.
England just New England just kind of got punched in the mouth to start the game, and it was like it was over.
Yeah. I wanna go back to Darnold. I agree with you that I don't think he played, like, a great game by any stretch. I
But
played
he
pretty
didn't
mid.
have to with how great that
No,
defense is.
of course not, no, he definitely coulda had some near turnovers, which coulda really changed the game. We talked about, how they won a lot of games this year kicking 4 or 5 field goals, and a part of that comes with, you get down around the red zone, you don't totally push anything, and it's like you pointed out, Christian Gonzalez dropped an interception, point blank, both of his hands dropped it, and you just gotta catch it. It was what, 6-0 at that point, and he has Jackson Smith and Jigba for a touchdown, and he throws it behind him on the post, and it just should have been picked. It got dropped, it should have been intercepted, and that could have been a huge momentum for New England, at least entering the half, feel good about yourself. Um, but besides, like, the handful of plays that definitely went very fortunate in Darnold's favor, not getting intercepted or whatever, the escapability on the sacks I felt was very good. He seemed, like, comfortable in the pocket. He didn't really seem super jittery. He just seemed like maybe a hair late on some throw decisions and then just missing a few, but, it was very much just mid. He missed, obviously, some wide open guys, but the sack avoidance was huge because New England coulda had some pretty big momentum shifts with some Milton Williams sacks and maybe getting off the field a few times or just putting them behind the sticks because of how well Kenneth Walker was running. And he would just get out of the way, escape away, dump it down to somebody, or throw it away at the worst. And it was huge for them. It really, really was. But yeah, you're right. He didn't need to do a ton. And it kind of opens up that whole conversation of how good does your quarterback need to be to win a Super Bowl? And I think the big key is that, the Darnold level guys, the Purdy level guys perhaps, and then you, like, teeter into, like, the higher level of that, which is maybe like Jalen and, like, a Goff type of guy. But the big, I think, X factor on how you can win with those guys, especially like Sam Darnold, you see it here, is the contract that he's on. He's only making 33 million a year, and obviously, it's not nothing. That's a nice chunk of change for Sam Darnold right there, but he's not getting 50 million like Brock Purdy is, you know what I mean? Like, you're not plugging the roster with Tua while he's making $52 million and is totally hamstringing your cap. Like, your options to win a Super Bowl in this league is to have, like, one of the few great quarterbacks, and they can be on a pretty expensive contract, but it's because they're so good that they can do so much heavy lifting for you, and you can afford to have a team that isn't as great around him because your quarterback is so good. Or you head into this more middle tier of quarterbacks with Sam Darnold, but you have the ability to spend a lot of money reshaping the defensive line with DeMarcus Lawrence and Leonard Williams, and you have the ability to go pay Julian Love and, acquire Ernest Jones and invest so heavily into, giving overpaying, we would say, for Cooper Cup, for example, as like an older receiver, because you're only paying Darnold, 33 million instead of $55 million. And obviously, it seems like Darnold's going to be getting some sort of raise in the offseason, but I do think it's going to be within reason. You get into trouble when you start paying these quarterbacks that aren't that good abhorrent amounts of money, and that's how you get shot and killed for that. But you pay Sam Darnold in like the 30s and those more midder to good quarterbacks in the 30s, and this is what you get. You get a ability to build a great team around a quarterback that can make some high level throws, but for the most part, you don't have to ask to do too much and you don't have to worry about the negative plays because if you can avoid them, things go well.
Yeah, Michael, I feel like, though, from like evolution of the NFL, especially as offenses are evolving as well as defenses, it does feel like we're going like we're I feel like we're reverting back to like the late 90s, early 2000s where like Trent Dilfer, Brad Johnson, a little known Michigan quarterback by the name of Tom Brady that nobody knew much about.
Mhm.
You know, if he was ever going to be a pro, like he was a game manager very early on in his Patriots tenure, and obviously he got better from that. But like back then, dude, it was like, oh, like why hasn't Peyton Manning won a Super Bowl?
Why
Why
isn't Josh Allen won a Super Bowl?
why isn't Donovan McNabb winning Super Bowls? Why isn't Michael Vick winning Super Bowls? Why isn't like these other really talented quarterbacks just not getting it done? It's because they just don't have great coaching or their teams aren't deep enough, you know? Like this Seahawks team, like Michael, if you were to say to me, John, what was like the 2002 Tampa Bay Buccaneers? What were they like? They were like this Seattle Seahawks team that just won the Super Bowl.
Mhm.
They played a far inferior opponent that one of their players that we didn't know about at the time had a lot of drama heading into the game. I don't know if you heard about Diggs. You know,
Of
apparently,
course, yeah.
Diggs, pulled a Diggs and created drama, and you saw how bad he played. Where he wasn't, it looked like it's like he wasn't even in the game plan. Like they were like trying to get Pop Douglas
I mean,
involved.
regardless. I mean,
It
yeah.
was like it was just like it was almost like if you knew the details, but like at the time of the game about Drake May's shoulder, the Diggs drama, like I would have just been like, this Patriots team's gonna get their ass kicked. Like they're
Yeah.
showing up to get their ass kicked.
I
Kind of
wanna I
like
wanna shout out some more. I wanna shout out Kenneth Walker. I wanna pivot to K9 a little bit. What did you think of the Super Bowl MVP's performance? I think he's the playoff MVP. I really do think he showed out in the playoffs
dude,
this
he
year.
kind of is. Like he's like, dude. So we talked about the injury to Charbonnet and every like the fantasy people were all pissed. We're all like not we're all pissed about K9 not getting a bazillion carries, but like listen, dude, like
It just goes to show that Kenneth Walker is so much better than Zach Charbonnet. And I understand Zach Charbonnet has his role on the team and it's a change of pace and it's a good back to, limit some of the touches for Walker to keep him healthy. But if Charbonnet doesn't get hurt, who knows what happens in these next couple games? We're not going to get 20, 29. How many carries did Kenneth Walker end up having? 25, 29, whatever. Like
Kenneth
they would have.
Walker set a career high for himself this year with 200 and sorry, I misread that. I apologize. He had 221 carries this year.
I mean, it's
The
not a
most he's ever
ton.
had the most he's ever had was his rookie year with 228.
Yeah, it's not a ton. It really isn't a ton in comparison to some other, high level backs. But
Yeah, like let me get a calculator. I'm
Kenneth
going to divide.
Walker's Kenneth Walker's showing out it says a 17 game average at the bottom if you're looking at Pro Football Reference. Um, but Kenneth Walker, he's supremely talented. He's one of the most talented backs in the league, and it's one of those guys that didn't get a ton of the credit, like you said, because of the fantasy stuff, because Zach Charbonnet vultures the touchdowns, and because you know he's gotten hurt a handful of times, and it's like you're not really seeing him on full display. And here you got a playoff run where you did see him on full display. Zach Charbonnet gets hurt early in the Niner game, and Walker you know, is the bulk carrier, and he has 3 touchdowns in the game. Even the Ram game, even it wasn't his most efficient rushing attack, and as the game went on, their defense got tighter up front, but he still had some pretty big explosive plays, like some screen game stuff and some outside runs. And then this game, how many times did it seem like New England made a good enough penetration up the middle and off the tackles where it's like, "Okay, this is going nowhere," and then he bounces it outside, and it's like, "Okay, he's gonna bounce it and maybe get a couple instead of losing a yard," and that's good, which he did a lot of, by the way, but then it would turn from a negative gain to, a 2-yard gain, and then all of a sudden, every run was like a 6-yard gain. So he's turning negative runs into 6 yards, like, every time, chunk by chunk, by getting outside, making a guy miss in the hole, sidestepping a linebacker in the hole, breaking a tackle, being hard to tackle. And, that's the sort of stuff you see as special quarterbacks. That's or running backs. That's what we saw out of Saquon last year. That's what you saw out of Bijan this year. And it's like those performances can yeah, absolutely. Those performances are huge. And I think Kenneth Walker has the talent level of those guys. He's just had some injuries, and then the running back situation over there limits some of the vision that some of the looks that he gets. But the vision, the patience, the speed to power converting with him, it's up there with some of the the best running backs in the league for sure. And he's due to be unrestricted free agent. Not really sure how you could even remotely consider not bringing him back, especially the way the running back hellscape still exists. If I'm Seattle, I'd be more than happy with paying a guy like him, where he is such an integral part of your offense, somewhere between 12
Well,
and
not
15
just that
million.
too, man. You just mentioned running back hellscape combined with this is a deep free agent running back class. Like, and realistically, I don't think any of these bad teams are going to make a big push to sign Kenneth Walker. That doesn't really make any sense. Like the Jets, for example, like, do you really want to sacrifice? Would you rather sacrifice a couple million to win another Super Bowl and not just go to the Jets and waste your time? I suppose. Like, of course not. You know, if you're K9,
I mean,
like
I'd be shocked if he leaves. He's a very timid guy. He's very to himself. I do think that, like,
I don't know, man, because it does feel like to me, like when you look at Seattle, like you just won the Super Bowl, kind of at completely out of nowhere. You still have this great defense. Your head coach is this defensive mastermind. The defense is probably always going to be good to a certain extent. The
right.
concern for Seattle, Clay Kubiak's going to be the head coach of the Raiders, and they're going to fill his position internally. And
Yeah, probably, right?
right, that's kind of was the belief. And you've been hyping up Clint Kubiak for over a year now, Michael. Like you were one of the first people
Mhm, mhm.
in on Clint Kubiak. And look, listen, when you have a great offensive coordinator, they're not exactly like easy to replace if you don't have a like a McVay or a Shanahan calling the plays on offense. That's the one
Right, right.
downside, right? To when you have a defensive coach. And I don't know. Like Clint Kubiak coached with Sam Darnold in San Francisco 2 years ago. How about that, Michael? How would you feel if Tanner McKee went to like
What,
the
New Orleans and won the Super Bowl?
went to like the Giants and won the Super Bowl?
Oh, you're thinking like the quarterback, not following the coach. Um, I mean, yeah, Tanner McKee isn't Sam Darnold though. Like these are two totally different things.
Right, but I mean like your backup
I
QB.
hear it. I don't know. I wouldn't feel. I don't. I'd feel the same way. I think if the Giants won the Super Bowl with anybody else, like when I look at like Kenneth Walker and your point of Kubiak leaving and that potential brain drain on the offensive side of the ball, I think that's what makes it important to keep a guy like Kenneth Walker around because the biggest weakness I would say to Seattle's offense, like personnel wise, is the offensive line. Not that it's bad, but it's just fine. It was getting dominated by Milton Williams the whole time. Like Gray Zabel, Theo said that he asked Gray Zabel about Kenneth Walker, and he said something along the lines of like, "Yeah, I mean, he bails us out all the time." Like saying how they sometimes miss a block or get beat right away or don't get to the spot they're supposed to get to, and Kenneth Walker's just so good that he's able to make a guy miss and make the run not be a huge negative. And I think when you have like you talk about like what constitutes paying a running back, what makes it worth paying a running back, I feel as though when you have an offense that isn't paying the quarterback such an obscene premium, and you're not like, you're going to pay JSN at some point. Um, but, like, the receiving core isn't you don't need to, like, extend everybody. It just feels like giving a second contract to a 25-year-old running back who just won Super Bowl MVP and was such an integral part of your offense, and his second contract not being more than, like, 15 million a year or something. It feels like you gotta be all over that, and it's one of those things too where it's like a free pass. If Kenneth Walker can't stay healthy for the next 3 years and is just not good, falls off the cliff early, no one's gonna get mad at you for paying the Super Bowl MVP in the year after, you know what I mean? Especially
Well,
homegrown guy like
Kenneth
that.
Walker shouldn't get more than I think 10 or 11 million AAV.
He might get like 12 to 13, I
In
could
this
see.
market, and teams just don't value running backs. Like, I don't know. Like, we'll
But I
see.
mean, that's the thing, like, you saw how valuable the running back was in this game. Like, yeah, you don't value it, but here you see it so valuable. If you sub out Kenneth Walker for Charbonnet that whole game, I have no idea what the score is. I don't know if Seattle would have got their 12 points from all their field goals with Kenneth Walker dragging them deep into New England territory every time. Like, truly, I'm not sure
Are
what
you
it would
being,
have
are
looked
you
like.
advocating for the end of the running back hellscape? Is that what
Not
you're?
necessarily, but I think there are situations where it's worth expending a few extra millions to a running back, and I think this is one of those situations. It makes a hell of a lot of sense. It's the Eagles gave Saquon a raise, and I think that Kenneth Walker being a free agent, like, I don't know, if you remove Kenneth Walker from the equation, it is not a guarantee that your replacement for him is gonna be as good as he is. Like, again, we talk about the Seahawks running game. Is the Seahawks running game like the Eagles running game from 2021 to 2024 where, it almost didn't matter who the running back was? DeAndre Swift was rushing for 1,300 yards, or is it a running game that is a lot more dependent on the running back being special, like, say, Bijan Robinson in Atlanta? You know, like, I don't think you can just plug anyone into the Seattle offense and they're gonna have an impact the way that Kenneth Walker had an impact. Whereas you clearly could plug in a mid running back in the Eagles offense and he was going to have success the way that DeAndre Swift could have. So, I think there's more value depending on how your team's built, and Seattle's offensive line not being super incredible, I think lends itself to being alright
Well,
paying a
that's
running
the
back.
thing about the Shanahan offense was originally it was like, oh, you just plug in anybody to run it, and like you'll have success. Like the big guy I think of was Raheem Mostert when he was originally in San
Right,
Fran, right?
exactly.
And then
Yeah.
you had like, gosh, what, like Elijah Mitchell at some like kind of getting reps, and then you had
Mhm.
like, like in other words, what I'm like, I don't know, Jordan Mason, getting
Right, right.
reps. And then what do they do, Michael? They trade a premium amount of picks to get Christian McCaffrey, and
You
you
see
know
it take off, it's not
you see it. Yeah, exactly, dude. And now I agree. Like, I don't. That's gonna be an interesting storyline to see them retaining K9 because there is a difference between him and Marshawn Lynch. Marshawn Lynch was a true bell cow. K9's not, but to your point, like Seattle's got guys they want to keep like long term, and I don't. They'll
but he's
probably.
25, he's not 28, you know what I mean? Like, you're giving him his 2nd contract now. You're not giving him a 3rd contract. I
I
just
don't.
think it'd be a totally different situation.
It just feels to me it's like you let him like. What do you think the franchise tag for a running back would cost?
I think that's bad business, like, truly. I think the Seahawks GM is too smart to like, I think that's how you start causing problems, by trying to cheap out and lowball your Super Bowl MVP, you know what I mean? Like, eh, it's bad politics, it's a bad look, it's a bad optic, it's a bad everything. Like, the Eagles gave Saquon a nice raise. Saquon had a pretty bad Super Bowl. He didn't light the world on fire in the big game, but Kenneth Walker did, and I don't know. I think that if you start throwing that around, people are going to look at the Seahawks organization a little bit sideways, and I think that's how you cause some internal issues. People, first of all, no one thinks a franchise tag is a good idea. No one likes a franchise tag. No one wants to give franchise tags except cheap teams. And like that's why you see the Cowboys do it, talking about it with George Pickens and the Bengals with Trey Hendrickson. Like those are and T. Higgins, like those are loser organizations that make those moves, you know. What's the GM's name? John Schneider. He's one of 3 GMs now in NFL history to win multiple Super Bowls with different head coaches and different quarterbacks, joining Howie and Ozzie Newsome. So I think I think he's a great
That's
GM,
pretty good
and
company to be in.
yeah, he's a great general manager, no doubt about it. So I think that it's worth keeping together that part and then building through your offensive trenches a little bit because I do like your point a lot that the defense is one of those things. The Seattle defense is probably always going to be good as long as Mike McDonald's
Yeah,
there.
it's
I
like
have
the
a hard time
Steelers
believing it's not going to be good.
back in the day
Uh,
with the Steelers.
yeah, no, for sure. But yeah, any other big points you want to hit on with the Super Bowl?
I'm going to say big picture after the Super Bowl. I had some other takes as well. I guess I'll go with my first one. I think the Eagles, a lot of these, I'll say this: the changes the Eagles are making ruffled a lot of people's feathers. The idea, like, we wanted change, but we wanted some things that we like to stay the same.
Right.
But I think now, after watching this game, the Eagles' offensive schematically needs to get better. And, you know, if you want to keep up with Seattle, like, look, if you want to have like a McVay style offense, well, guess what? The only thing that's given the Seattle Seahawks trouble this past year was McVay level concepts.
Right.
Whether it was Josh Grizzard running a McVay concepts early on in the season, which honestly was probably a lot of dumb luck was involved in that, probably too. And then
Hmm.
the Rams games, the 3 Rams games they played. You know, we know the Eagles have great receivers. You know, and I'm sorry, you look at the Niners. Robert Saleh, I think he's a top 3, top 5 D coordinator. He's gone again.
Hmm.
That defense is going to get worse. I'm sorry, it just is. It's just going to get
Yeah.
worse. And
No.
like the window's still open. And you hear AJ Brown, or you see AJ Brown was hanging out with Cooper DeJean. Reports are it sounds like AJ Brown is much more amenable. So I would imagine he probably likes the changes that are made. And I'm just sick of the AJ Brown slander, man. I'm just sick of it. I'm sick of the
I
slander.
agree.
I'm sick of the slander. Like, people are like glazing digs when he's literally a garbage human being. And he can't even
Yeah.
control himself. He couldn't control himself before the Super Bowl. Like, we're freaking out at AJ Brown for not being satisfied for winning the Super Bowl because he wants to dominate. Meanwhile, like, people are cracking jokes on Diggs, literally going to the slammer after that game.
Yeah. It could always be worse. Any other thoughts, general, on the big game?
Dude, I have this. So if you look at like the Super Bowl and like the cycles between the NFC and the AFC, like winning like a lot of games in a row, I think dude, we might be hitting a crazy cycle of the NFC just dominating Super Bowls.
It feels like it's it feels like as long as I've been alive, a lot of Super Bowls have been the NFC is this like complete team, this forced, and the AFC is this elite quarterback. The team isn't as good, but the quarterback is the big advantage. And it's like, there were a lot of Brady teams, especially in like the post 2000s era, that had defenses outside of the top 10 in like EPA. You think about the 2017 against the Eagles and stuff. And then you think of like Joe Burrow and the Bengals going up against this like machine monster that is the Rams. And I know that Burrow didn't do like a total carry job that year. The defense was a lot better, but it's just, you know what I mean? Like it's like a superstar quarterback out of the AFC, and then like the NFC is this like force to be reckoned with. And that was true when it was like, oh, the AFC's only had representatives of Brady, Roethlisberger, Manning, Flacco and Mahomes for the last like 20 years, like that sort of thing. And the NFC's got, one of Breeze and one of Rodgers. And it's like the all-time great quarterbacks don't get out of the NFC like regularly, is my point, I guess. And, last year was a great example. The last 4 years really was since 2022 especially, like, the 2022 Chiefs, the first Chiefs team without Tyreek Hill, so the offensive weapons took a big hit. It was Mahomes' big carry job with, like, a good defense, and the Eagles, total machine, where this is such a better team than the Chiefs, they're so much better, and Mahomes puts on, like, a masterclass, and we lose. Um, the following year, 2023, we look at the Niners, and it's like, that's a damn good Niners team. Debo, Ayuk, Kittle, McCaffrey was at the peak of his powers. Purdy had a great regular season too, and the defense, Fred Warner, Dre Greenlaw, and Bosa was playing. Like all these guys, it was like this Niners team just way too good. And Mahomes, got to the Super Bowl on like Zay Flowers fumbling, like totally seems lucky. Like this Chiefs team isn't that good. Like oh my god, and what is, Mahomes puts together big performances again, and the defense shows up at opportune times, and the Chiefs win. And then what do you get last year? Another Mahomes carry job, and the Chiefs seemingly are getting worse at the seams, but they're just finding ways to win because of Patrick Mahomes putting on the cape and all the cliches, going up against this all-time juggernaut Philadelphia Eagles team, and finally it broke the trend, and the Eagles went out and dominated because they were just flat out the better team, and the quarterback disadvantage didn't matter at all. And then this year, we talk about the lack of weaponry on the New England offense, and the defense is like good, but outside of Gonzo and maybe Milton Williams lacks like total star power. And Drake May was an MVP level quarterback all season. Going up against Sam Darnold, who you don't feel super high about, but the defense is incredible, and JSN wins Offensive Player of the Year, and Kenneth Walker's running out of his mind, and the defense is ferocious, total juggernaut team, and you get another demolition. So, if it serves us right, we're gonna get like a mid Bills. Kidding. We're probably gonna get like the Chiefs. I don't know, who knows? But it's like Josh Allen dragging a mid Bills team to the Super Bowl to go up against the Rams juggernaut next year. Like that
Well, it's
sort
gonna
of
probably be like
style.
Lamar taking like a above average Raven offense with a much better defense with Jesse Minter into the
Yeah.
Super Bowl versus like gosh, like I don't know,
The
like
Eagles.
what McVay offense
Yeah, I
Eagles
was gonna say
and
Eagles could be back, the Rams could get there, finally break through again, and, like, the Rams are gonna be loaded again. Like, their roster's gonna be great. The Rams got a good amount of cap space. Um, so, like, yeah, juggernaut Rams versus Lamar carry job on offense Ravens. You could see it in the cards, absolutely.
or
Could
like
you
I don't
not?
know, like Niner, like I don't know, bro, like
No,
Niners,
exactly. Total yeah, yeah.
healthy
Or
Niners.
here you go, Green Bay with Micah Parsons healthy, and, Josh Jacobs has a great year, and Jordan Love, and it's like, wow, the Packers, they really put it together finally, and they go play, like, Lamar and the Ravens who break through. Yeah, absolutely. Like, that's what it's been, and that's what it's setting up to. Alright,
Yeah,
do we well, what were you gonna say?
I was just I don't know, like I do feel like I have a one big take what I had as well, and I think I like to know your thoughts on this too. I think we're gonna see. I think I forget who I don't know if I texted you this. I think I texted you this. I think we're gonna see at least on the NFL draft night one, at least in the first 16 picks. I think the first 10 are going to be either an offensive tackle or an edge rusher.
Do you think that outside of Mendoza, maybe no quarterbacks go in the first round?
I would have to agree because I don't think Ty Simpson
As a
didn't
first
really.
round anything, yeah. Like
Yeah, I don't think he's a first round pick. If you
and,
take
like,
him,
to be completely honest with you, Darnold winning the Super Bowl here should kind of show you that, you know what I mean? Like, look at how the Seahawks built their team with Witherspoon and Wari. Those are 2 pretty high draft selections that they took that ended up working out swimmingly for them, and, all these great players on the Seahawks team have been drafted within the last, like, 4 years, and they waited around. See, like that there it is right there. You talk about getting a franchise quarterback, it's so important, whatever. Seattle went out, built out, fleshed out a very, very good roster without getting the quarterback and was just trying to find the right sauce for it. You had Gino last year who had a really nice season and um or 2 seasons ago had a really nice season, excuse me, and last year was, like, solid enough, but you saw that, like, he was kinda holding you back. It was like even though Darnold led the league in turnovers this year, it was Gino was making just 1 too many turnovers and wasn't avoiding the sacks as well, and, some of the one score luck doesn't go your way, and those sort of things happen, and then
Gino was
this year
Gino was a popular player for Seahawks fans, and they let him go. Clint Kubiak comes in as the OC, coming off a Saints stint where you're like, okay, he was great when Derek Carr was healthy, and then it went off the rails. Like, what are we getting here exactly?
you saw the vision, and then you got a quarterback that just was really good in the regular season, just flat out, but wasn't a requirement to win. So I think if you're some of these teams sitting at the top of the draft, I'm staring in so intently at the New York Jets that there is no need to feel the heat and draft a quarterback because you really think you need one. When honestly, like we talked about their offensive line with Fashanu and Membu, like go draft Caleb Downs, the safety from Ohio State, and make that your Wari. You needed this. Seattle needed
I don't think
Wari.
they're going to take a safety second overall. I think they're going to
Or
realistically.
trade back and take Caleb Downs or something. You know what I mean?
Who
Like,
the hell wants to trade up to number two if there's no quarterback there?
well, just like that's my point is to get creative with it instead of just forcing the issue. And who
I think
cares if you
I
take a
think
safety at
next
2 or
year
6?
I think next year I think with those some of those extra first round picks the Jets possess, they should get creative with getting more picks next year if you want to move up to get the quarterback that you want. I do feel like because next year's quarterback class is going to be much better. To me, I think this should be the year GMs. We see trends in the NFL, right, Michael? We see trends. Like everyone's going to look at the Eagles and they're going to look at the Seahawks and they're going to be like, okay, we need to improve our D line. Ruben Bain probably went from being like a top 12 pick to now potentially top 5
Mhm.
because a team's going to look at it and be like, dude, we need to get better up front. And we need to, basically, it's almost like the term that was used when Jim Johnson was the Eagles defensive coordinators. We need more fastballs, right? It used to be you just needed really one or two guys to rush the passer. Well, the Seahawks have like the Eagles had like five, like each had four guys that could do that
At
on their own.
least it's really like
But the
it's
difference between the Eagles and the Seahawks, where I think teams are going to want to emulate the Seahawks more than the Eagles, is that the Eagles have the next Aaron Donald on their defensive line. The Seahawks don't have anyone like that. Like, with all due respect
no.
to DeMarcus Lawrence, very good player, Michael.
I mean, Demarcus Law they got great guys up there. Demarcus Lawrence, Leonard Williams, Byron Murphy's really good. It's obviously we think the ceiling of Carter is a lot higher, but it's still like very elite up there. Like we saw it, on full display. And like Leonard Williams didn't even need to do anything, and it was still that dominant.
That's my
Like,
point. Like, it's easier to find those level of guys than being having the ability to draft like a Jalen Carter. So,
well,
like,
that's yeah. Like I think that. that's part of why, like, skipping out on the quarterback to go get guys like that before you like, here's the perfect example. I'm gonna pull up a former draft. The Okay, this might work out perfect. Hold on. 2024 NFL draft where Seattle's picking at 16 and absolutely has they had the means to move up and go do something. So Seattle at 16 takes Byron Murphy. When you look at teams like Atlanta, where they really felt they needed the quarterback, and take Michael Penix 8th overall, Minnesota, having Sam Darnold in the building, feeling the need, can't miss JJ McCarthy, apparently. Even Denver at 12, like Bo Nix, for example, who, Denver built out a good enough team at that point where drafting a guy like Bo Nix, it's fine. It's a similar guy to Darnold where the team is good enough and, you know, as long as the guy doesn't be a total disaster, you can win a lot of games that way. Seattle went and could have been aggressive and moved up and taken guys like that, but the fact of the matter was they were very comfortable just kind of continuing to build out the roster, trusting the process that the quarterback is eventually going to come around, build yourself a great foundation, and not have to break the bank or invest a super high draft pick in a quarterback. Obviously, there's some prospects you feel like you can't miss, like Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, or Drake May, but if you're in a position where the quarterback isn't super enticing or it's gonna cost you a ton of capital to move up to get a guy that you maybe aren't sold as truly the next generational coming of prospect, there's nothing wrong with building out a great team. Like, we now have proof and stuff of able to win Super Bowl without top 5 quarterback, and the way by doing that is by having a great team and having this not incredibly elite quarterback on a crazy contract, and, like, Seattle was a great blueprint for that, and I think a lot of teams could follow.
Yeah, I would say the Seahawks. I mean, I would say like here's the thing with Seattle. We have to question though, not a question, but like
Oh,
in a
John,
down.
hold on. Might be you might be skipping a little bit.
I'm sorry. How's this? Am I still skipping or
Uh, give yourself a quick little exit reentry potentially. Um,
how am I?
you're
How do I?
loading,
How
you're
about now?
loading. You're a black screen for me. I wanna see how it looks on Twitter if it's my mistake. Oh, no, you're back. Alright, cool, cool. You're back. Very nice.
Yeah. So sorry. So
You're good.
this felt like it's just a down year for the NFL in general, and kind of like when the Bucks won the Super Bowl in 2002.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, I mean, I don't. I mean, the Seahawks had great injury luck. Um, Darnold looked really nice the first half of the year. Like that Commander game, he was just carving up the Commanders. We were like, wow, like okay, like he's not seeing ghosts anymore. And then he
Mhm.
started seeing ghosts again, and then they kind of fixed it. You know, they made like a quick, like a hot fix, and he became more of a game manager, and they were still winning games, and he diced up the Rams, in the NFC Championship game, which realistically that was probably the Super Bowl. That game was probably
The AFC Championship? Yeah, absolutely.
that was unbeknownst to us at the time. That was probably the Super Bowl.
It was probably beknownst to us. I think we knew.
Yeah, yeah, probably. Yeah, you're right. Um,
Hmm.
um, I think though when everyone makes this run at a certain position and overdrafts guys, not I'm going to kind of bring in the Eagles here. Like this is where I feel like the Eagles could potentially get a top 12 player at 23 because the bad teams that perennially stay bad follow trends attempting to emulate the good teams.
Mhm.
And I'm
Mhm.
not saying Kenyon Sadiq at falling to 23 because I think late first round is kind of where he should probably go. Like if Brock Bowers can only go like top 12 and
Right.
he's like tight end Jesus, why
Mhm.
is Kenyon Sadiq going at the same time as him?
I hear you. Yeah. It'll be interesting. We'll definitely be able to look more into the draft as the time goes on,
It's
but
just gonna suck when like Caleb Downs is gonna be a New York Giant.
be a great pickup for them. Um, you wanna talk briefly about the awards, and then we'll wrap up?
Yeah, we'll briefly talk about the NFL awards. I mean, obviously, this is where I feel bad for Drake May. Everyone the night before who thought he should have been the MVP, the next night are like, Drake May's so bad. Like you can't be like saying he's the MVP and then he has a down game because he's playing a way better team and be like, oh, he sucks. Like I thought it was
Right.
just I just think that what are like my kind of take on the awards. Man, I think they're just as bad as the MLB, man. I think they're just
On,
as bad
like,
as
voting?
yeah.
I think MVP, I think they've gotten it wrong the last 2 years, to be completely frank. Um, besides that, I think it was, fine enough, I guess. I will say that I do think you have a point there. I think the biggest takeaway for me was, like, the McCaffrey PR and how much that carried, like, so much weight. It was like, "Oh, he had a 1,200 receiving yard or rushing yards and
I
almost
didn't know
1,000
McCaffrey
receiving yards."
had like S tier
Like,
Josh Allen.
he finished 4th in MVP voting, dude. Like, that is such a farce to me. Um he finished 2nd in Offensive Player of the Year voting and barely lost, by the way, to Jackson Smith and Jigba, which I think is a load of crap because I think there was some voting, like, politics involved where the people that were voting Matthew Stafford to win MVP were not giving Puka Nacua enough credit, and, like, that to me is I think that's, like, the biggest deterrence for me thinking that Stafford is the MVP, is the fact that you're not even the best player on your position unit. You're not the best player on the offense. Puka Nacua was, and, like, by a good margin. And it's like we all of a sudden stopped caring about, like, late season games mattering. Like, that was always important in MVP voting. A stinker in December, especially in prime time, was enough to sink you. And, like, Stafford goes and lays an effing disaster in Atlanta on Monday night, effectively costing his team to be in the run to win the division and probably costing his team a Super Bowl appearance. You'd like to think if the game was in SoFi instead of Seattle, how different that could have been, the NFC
Ah,
Championship
yes,
game.
instead of being in like the ravenous home field, of the home of the 12th man.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you're in
playing it.
SoFi, you're in the mall, we'll call it.
Yeah, I was about to say like the very like
The mall, you're in the mall.
the distilled atmosphere of
Right,
SoFi.
right.
What
So, like,
corporate America wants
you
the
could've
NFL to look like.
right. So, like, the last, like, 15 MVPs or whatever have all been a top 2 seed in their conference, and this year we're giving it to a wild card team, and it's just like, those things do matter. Part of the MVP it's not baseball where winning doesn't matter for the MVP. It's not like hockey if someone blows the points record out of the water, but their team isn't good, they're not gonna get you know what I mean? Like, you need to part of being the most valuable player in football is you need to be valuable in terms of winning and winning games in that way. And especially when it's the quarterback award, basically. And I just think that Puka's greatness was kind of dissolved for the sake of propping up Stafford for his lifetime achievement award. Um, yeah, but, like, it just I don't know. McCaffrey finished 4th in MVP voting, finished 2nd in Offensive Player of the Year, 1 Comeback Player of the Year. I had no problems with that. That one was completely fine to me. But, yeah, he definitely got a lot. Jackson Smith and Jigba, incredible season, definitely deserved Offensive Player of the Year. I have no problems with that one. Uh, Defensive Player of the Year, obviously unanimous. Myles Garrett, not even worth speaking about. Um, Offensive Rookie of the Year also, we were getting a little shucky as the season went on, but the fact of the
He won
matter
the
was,
Pepsi Rookie of the Year.
yeah, which is just like a load of crap. But like the fact of the matter is you're not giving it to a quarterback who in 9 starts threw 10 touchdowns and 6
Dude,
picks.
I think if
Not
Igbuka
that it was
caught,
bad, but like
if
you just
Igbuka
can't do
caught
that.
that touchdown on Thursday night, I think he's the Rookie of the Year.
I don't think so because he only I don't know, like McMillan had more yards, and even with the catch, would have still had more yards. And like it does when we talk about NFL awards, it does matter how you finish to an extent. And it's like Ibuka, yeah, sure, he was the free offensive rookie of the year through like Halloween, and then he just like went invisible. Like it was, and he was just playing poorly. It wasn't even like, oh, they're not getting him the ball. It was like he's
As soon as
dropping passes.
Baker's injury got worse, then it was like that whole offense just fell off the
Yeah,
wagon.
yeah. Carson Schweschinger, um, getting defensive rookie of the year. I thought that was a fine decision too. I thought, Nick Eamon had a nice argument, but I'm no issues with Schweschinger getting that award at all for me. Comeback player of the year, same thing with CMC. Uh, he could have it. I felt that was fine. Protector of the year, I liked that went to Joe Tooney. I thought that was a good decision. I really thought this would be like the way MVP is a quarterback award. I thought protector would be like a free tackle award every single year. And maybe it's because like Lane Johnson didn't have, he's hurt all year, and Sewell didn't have like the most dominant season ever. So maybe that's part of the reason why it went to Tooney. But I'm
I
glad. I
think,
think that was worth it.
yeah, I have a feeling that, and Joe Tooney, you know, shout out to him. He had a great year. I do think my reason for the Stafford MVP was, well, we need to help Matthew Stafford make the Hall of Fame because we overlooked him for so long. We overlooked Joe Tooney for so long because he played in New England. He went to the Chiefs and he played like amazing there. Hey, let's give him this inaugural award to like help boost his like Hall of Fame credentials. You know, and I think
Yeah,
and
I
I think
mean,
it
I don't
helped.
think
And I
he's
think that
undeserving.
and if Lane is healthy for the Eagles in 2026, plays all 17 games, he's probably going to win that award because they're going to want to help
Yeah,
his Hall of Fame credentials because he doesn't have many Pro Bowls. So, I think he deserved it. I mean, like, I don't know who else really in the NFL maybe should have gotten it over him. I don't know. A lot of guys were
yeah.
hurt.
No, I thought it was fine. I think Coach of the Year, Vrabel gets it, which like I don't know. I didn't love Rabel getting it. I thought that I really do think Cohen should have got it. Um, I think there was an argument for McDonald, but I feel as though
Vrabel's definitely going to be the coach when he retires at like a younger age. He's going to definitely be in television.
yeah, sure, for sure. But I don't know. I thought Liam Cohen probably should have got it. I thought that his job was a lot more impressive with the turnaround, where it's like he is responsible for the offense. He is taking a bunch of assets that everyone thinks are cooked and got a ton of like everyone was like, no one was really that excited about Travis Etienne anymore. That sort of hype wore off. A lot of people were out on Trevor Lawrence. And it's like, look what he did. He put together a really good offense where like Mike Vrabel just kind of like refreshed the Belichick culture into the organization, and like that just kind of gave him a free award, and I'm like, okay. Like it just renamed the award to like, all right, what coach is gonna have the biggest year to year win jump? What team has the biggest win jump from previous year? You are the coach getting the award. Patriots had the biggest win jump this year. He gets the award. Like
Yeah,
It is
yeah.
what it
Once you
is.
think that's a good point because once you think Super Bowl notwithstanding, like Mike McDonald, you think of that epic
Sure,
Seattle
I think.
turnaround.
Well, I last year, the only thing with that is, they were not that brutal last year. What were they, 7-10 last year? Oh, no, they were 10-7 last year. You know what I mean? Like, while I agree all these jumps occurred, especially on the defensive side of the ball, they went from 11th in points allowed and 14th in yards to 1st and 6th respectively. The offense jumped from 18th in points to 3rd, 14th in yards to 8th. I it just I don't know. Like, it's just gonna go to every coach who had a bad season and turns it around. So if you look at the NFL standings this year, if we wanna try to predict who's gonna win the award, uh like, if the Titans win 10 games and win a bad AFC South or something, it's gonna be Robert Saleh, coming at 13 wins. Obviously, if the Raiders have some big turnaround, it'll be Kubiak. Looking at the NFC, I think John Harbaugh is gonna be at the top of the list in terms of odds-on betting favorites for it. Um, and then, potentially, like, Mike LaFleur in Arizona getting the gig. You know what I mean? Like, you're just skimming the crap of bad teams from the year before, and if you can turn it around and win your division, you're probably getting the award.
Or an existing coach now that's on a team that maybe they have a huge off season, they make the like a Seahawks like jump, and then it's like, oh, they deserve it. So I'm thinking
Go to, like, actual impressive, truly impressive coaching things because, like, I don't know. I would have given it to Cohen first, and my second place coach would have been Kyle Shanahan for what he did with all the injuries and stuff this year. And, like, I don't know. He played with Mac Jones for like
I,
7 games, and they
I would
were
just I would
one
just
game from the
assume
1
right
seed.
now the odds on favorite should be Jesse Minter. I would put
Yeah. Oh my god, for sure. Like, a 8-9 Ravens team fire the coach, and the following year, they jump to, like, 14 wins again and are the 1 seed in the AFC. And the defense is, like, totally transformed. Jesse Minter.
and like
Congratulate
Lamar's
and, like,
hat.
that would be listen, that would be deserving. I don't wanna, like, slander every coach that wins the award, but it's just like, we know what it's become, honestly.
Yeah, it's going to be Jesse Minter.
And we'll see.
We'll see.
What else did you wanna talk about before we wrap
Well,
up
I think
here?
we should wrap
Anything?
this up because we had a discussion about one of these guys that got elected to Pro Football Hall of Fame, but I think we didn't really touch on it a whole lot about the Pro Football Hall of Fame class of 2026. Bill got snubbed from the Hall of
Yeah, I
Fame.
mean, that's a farce, man. That is a
That's
flat out farce.
re- really stupid, and I wonder maybe that snub Bill, give it to Vrabel because he's a nicer guy. Like I don't get it.
Appease Robert Kraft, I guess.
But he didn't even get elected either, Michael. I mean, he shouldn't be because he's on a certain list,
Yeah, I
that
mean, that guy should be in jail,
I
but
will not reference on this show, but
yeah.
um, Epstein. NFL. Sorry, it's the Pro Football Hall of Fame, not the NFL, Michael. There's professional football besides the NFL.
Yeah, I guess.
Uh, okay, so I think we're gonna. I had a lot of takes tonight. I'm expecting a hot take from you
Tonight?
for this Pro Football Hall of Fame because
Oh, okay, okay.
you said it to me, I know you want to say it. So, Drew
Oh, boy.
Brees elected first year of eligibility in the Hall of Fame. Guys like top 5 in almost every passing category. He has a ring. I'm not a fan of him personally, but that's not how we're
No.
basing the Hall of Fame off of.
Mhm.
He should be there.
Yeah.
First ballot. Agree? Disagree?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Okay, that's pretty straightforward. Roger Craig. I didn't watch him play because I was too young, but he was a big part of a lot of those Super Bowl wins for the Niners.
Mhm.
First player to have 1,000 yards rushing and 1,000 yards receiving.
Sure, deserves it. Have it.
Deserves it. I feel like, when you look at like dynasties, you know, the Steelers have like a bazillion guys in the Hall of Fame from their 70s dynasty. The Niners, similar dynasty.
Mhm.
Feels like it's just like Jerry Rice, Joe Montana, like Ronnie Lott. Like
Yeah.
that's it.
So
So
yeah,
getting another,
yeah, that's deserving. What? Who's next?
so deserving. Oh boy. Larry Fitzgerald.
Mm. Now listen, Larry Fitzgerald, Hall of Famer, absolutely. But if we're gonna be so stingy on first ballot and not, I don't think that Larry Fitzgerald should be like mega rewarded for just being like a really good guy. It seems like Larry Fitzgerald had some really great seasons. Like I don't want to act like he was some sort of bum. But when you like actually dig down into some of his numbers and whatnot, some of it was just like not that. He wasn't super efficient at times. He really wasn't. When you're looking at Hall
Did
of
you see?
Famers
Did you see he played with
and
like 30 different quarterbacks?
oh, for sure, he deserves a lot of credit for that sort of stuff.
I mean, look at poor Jay Jettas.
But when you look
Are we
at but
gonna
when you look
slander
at
Jay Jettas because he was stuck with nine?
no, because Jay Jettas is putting up, you know, receiving seasons, he's averaging his 17 game average at the moment is 1,500 yards, right? And, Julio Jones, for example, his 17 game average is 1,400 yards. And that's even with sticking around 9 games with Atlanta at the age 31, and then the Titans, Tampa, Eagles years where he really is just not doing much of anything. But his averaging 1,400 yards per 17 games throughout his career, two-time first-team All-Pro, all those wonderful stats and accolades. Larry Fitzgerald only made one All-Pro, one first-team All-Pro back all the way back in 2008, 1,431 yards. It was best year of his career, no doubt about it. But his 17 game average is only 1,100 yards, and it's like it's great. He's still very good, and I think is deserving of the Hall of Fame, but I think he had a lot of really positive PR throughout his career. That whole stat that I'm not even sure if it's true, he's got more tackles than drops or something like that. Like, I don't know. I think that because if he's going in first ballot, it's such a shame that Terrell Owens didn't go in first ballot. Like, truly, truly was, because Terrell Owens played a little bit earlier in his era where the you know um the passing was not as high, but he still had a higher 17 game average even in a season where he never played in a 17 game season. He still had a higher 17 game average at 1,200 yards a season. He had 30 more touchdowns than Larry Fitzgerald in 50 less games or 40 less games or so. And it's like, that is a significant jump from there. And it's like one guy's not a first ballot Hall of Famer and the other guy is. Larry Fitzgerald was a one-time first team All Pro, but Terrell Owens was a five-time first team All Pro. And it's like, we're talking about two totally different caliber players at this
Yeah,
point.
I
And
you know
one's a
I
first ballot and one's not.
yeah I would Michael. I do agree. Well, do you know this? Michael Marvin Harrison Senior wasn't elected until his third year of eligibility. The only guy from that era that got elected in his first year of eligibility from that like 90s to 2000s era, Michael, was Randy Moss.
Yeah, and I just think that's wrong. Like, here's another guy that is absolutely not going to get in first team All Pro just because of the perception about him. Antonio Brown. Like, is just, CT stuff, not maybe the best person or whatever. Probably not gonna get in first team All Pro or, first ballot Hall of Fame. But that's a sham, man. His 17-game average is 1,431 yards. He still had nearly 13,000 yards only playing in 146 total games as a professional. Like, shorter career, was not like a full starter until his 4th year in the league, banged up throughout the career and stuff, and was just putting up ridiculous numbers, ridiculous. These are guys that I feel as though are deserving of that first ballot Hall of Fame status, and I just think Larry Fitzgerald, while great, all-time great, I think it's just a step below and gets carried by, like, his character and, you know, "Oh, he played with such bad quarterbacks." Like, I think those things carry so much weight for him in terms of how good he actually is. He's great, but I do think there's
This
definitely
does,
a gap.
yeah, I agree. I do. So Ray Didinger's criteria for this is to be elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, not necessarily first ballot.
Mhm.
You have to be a top three player at your position for 5 seasons, which I
And,
think,
like, you
which
look at Larry Fitzgerald's 3 best his best 3-year stretch, and it has to be
with Kurt Warner.
I'll give him a 4-year stretch where he was really at the top of his game. It's tough. He had a really his age 22 season, he had 1,400 yards, and it was like, "Oh my god, this guy's like Jesus Christ." And then he only had 950 yards in a 13-game season, he got hurt. 1,400 yards the next year, 1,431 the next year, didn't crack 1,100 the next year, 1,100, 1,400. There was a chunk of time from, like, 2005 until 2011. And if you were to rank, like, those receivers in that time, is Larry Fitzgerald top 3 with Terrell Owens, Randy Moss, Marvin Harrison,
Well,
you know what I mean?
those guys were kind of winding down their careers, and his was kind of rising. But the other, I mean, it would be Megatron.
Right, like, I think Calvin Johnson is much better
I
than
would agree. To me, it also feels like, he played a lot of years in the NFL, which is
Torrey
really
Holt is another one that doesn't get enough respect.
well. Andre Johnson hasn't been elected to the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I do feel like if you want to I don't know, like the knock on the Pro Football Hall of Fame, Michael, was like the voters from like this 80s and the 90s would rush to like elect all like Steelers, Cowboys, Niners, guys that won a lot of Super Bowls. And then
Mhm.
other teams wouldn't get the acknowledgement. Now it's like, oh, we need to acknowledge these bad teams that had truly great players who their peers talk very highly of. Where like if they played on better teams, you know, it's almost like Saquon can be a Hall of Famer, Michael,
Yes.
potentially. And then the knock that the people will try to knock him. The counterpoint would be, yeah, he was played on some awful Giants teams.
Yeah, it's just tough because looking around at it and whatnot, it's just it's interesting because I don't think Fitzgerald's not a Hall of Famer. I just think that, first ballot, if you wanna make it something special, I don't think you just give it to guys that everyone
And
likes.
honestly, I don't think the TO was not elected first ballot because of his playing ability. I think it was
No, it's
because
because he wasn't liked, and, like, I think that's crap. Like, it's why Bill
I,
Belichick's not in, like, it's why I think that's a load of crap, I'll be completely honest with you. Um And listen, we'll see. When Antonio Brown doesn't get in first ballot, it'll be for the same reason. I hope that like Julio Jones and Megatron get in the first ballot because they'll totally deserve it. Um, but it'll be, we'll see. But yeah, that's our
well,
thoughts on the Hall of Fame there. Do we have anyone else?
well,
Who
there's
else
two more
maybe?
guys.
Oh yeah, yeah.
This one I think could have been maybe. This is kind of shocking, but it's like wow, it's sort of like a case of like man, like dude, injuries suck. You feel bad. Luke Kuechly.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was a right
Luke
decision.
Kuechly, I think, is younger than Bobby Wagner.
Yeah, I mean, Luke Kuechly is only, 30
4.
34 years old. You know, he retired at 28, but in his very short 8-year career was a first team All-Pro 5 times. So, kinda hard
Yeah,
to
yeah,
kinda
that's a
hard to
shame.
keep him out.
I know, it's a shame. It's like
And he arguably got he you could argue he well, actually, no, you can't. Disregard.
I was about to say if he didn't have so many concussions, like we might be talking about Luke Kuechly, like, oh my god, he's like he's the next Ray Lewis, Mike Singletary, Dick Buckus, like
I mean, I think he's up there. Like, I don't think we have to hold it against him. You know, it was truly like an 8-year peak that it's
he's
hard to do
he's
more in
linebacker
8 years.
Megatron.
It's hard to do more in 8 years, than what Luke Kuechly did. First team All-Pro only playing 13 games, second team All-Pro only playing like, dealing with injuries, but still being very comfortably recognized as one of the, like, 4 best linebackers every single year. Definitely deserving.
Okay, and then we got he might one of the most accomplished in terms of championships on this list, Adam Vinatieri. Michael,
Sure.
watching those guys trying to kick field goals in snow, I think really shows to appreciate how good he was having a kick in New England under those conditions, like all those years.
I'm honestly shocked he only made All-Pro first team 3 times. Um, I'm not gonna slander him. I'm not, but I'm just looking at some stats, and, you know, the career field goal percentage of 83.8%. I don't know what's good. What's a good number?
Well, keep in mind, Michael, it's not like today where they're using K balls.
I mean, I guess he yeah, but he also like he played in the last 5, you know. He retired in 2019. He had a 96.8 field goal percentage and a 100% extra point percentage in 2014. Obviously, the extra points used to be nothing, but 3-time first team All Pro, 3-time Pro Bowler. Yeah, sure, have it, take it.
I mean, you look at his numbers, it's like most field goal attempts, most made field goals, most games
It
played,
Yeah, it's like a historical thing they put
most
him in.
consecutive field goals made, most highest scoring.
Really, most consecutive field goals. What years did those take place? We didn't go
19,
perfect any year, so what year was it? I guess.
1978. I'm just kidding. I don't know. He's been around forever. Most
Yeah.
most postseason points, most field goal attempts, most made field goals. So like, it's funny because like when you would elect guys to the Pro Bowl as a kicker, it's like, okay, which guy scored the most points? That guy
Hmm.
goes to the Pro Bowl, right? Um, the Colts had a guy. It was Mike Vanderjagt that made the Pro Bowl a bunch of years, and he started to suck when he went. He told like a Toronto. He's from Canada. He told a Toronto newspaper basically like Peyton Manning just doesn't have that fire to be a winner. And then Peyton
Oh
Manning
yeah, I
like
did see that. Yeah.
publicly buries him during the Pro Bowl, and then literally his career like nosedived after that because he
Yeah.
went from Mike Vandermake. His nickname was like Mike Vandermake to Mike Vandershank.
Yeah.
So it's like you have guys that like or like Rob Baronis, you know, guys would have 2 or 3 really good, great years, amazing years, and fizzle out. I think his longevity, and plus he's like an important part of NFL history. And you look at like the postseason, you know, when you watch the it's hard to talk about the Super Bowl without Adam Vinatieri's name coming up somewhere, you know. So, yeah, I mean, sure, you know, um, maybe we'll have an Eagle next year. Make the Pro Football Hall of Fame was kind of cool seeing Eric Allen last year do it.
Hmm.
Like, I don't know, like I mean, the list just keeps getting bigger and bigger. Like, I do feel like Andre Johnson does deserve it to go to the Pro Football Hall of Fame, you
Yeah.
know. Well, we'll see.
We'll see. Yeah.
We'll see. Anyway, that's our show for tonight, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. Take care. And we're taking a hiatus this weekend. We'll see you next week.
We are part of the Fired Up Sports Network of shows. Please check out other Fired Up Sports Network podcasts like the P-Lot Pod, Water Cooler Talk, Bell Smashers, Phillies Sports Love and Pain, Drunk on Broad, Beer Battered Sports, and the Fired Up Sports Show, which are available on all major podcasting hosting sites and social media. Also, check out Mark Ramos' Roundup on firedupsports.com, which breaks down the happenings going on with all your favorite local